Trying to run a supercomputer, but not with electricity and those rigid silicon chips. Like, imagine trying to run with a bucket of salt water.
Right, which sounds completely counterintuitive, almost absurd, really.
Yeah, totally absurd. Because we are just so heavily conditioned to believe that the human brain is simply this biological digital computer. I mean, we picture this neat binary network where a neuron fires or it doesn't, right? Relying on these electrical spikes traveling down perfectly insulated little wires.
Exactly. And that digital neuron model has, well, it's completely dominated our understanding of cognition for decades now.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
It is. And it's a very clean framework,
Yeah.
It maps so neatly onto the digital technology that we build every single day. But the problem is, by forcing biological reality into this silicon metaphor, that model drastically narrowed our view of how intelligence actually operates.
And that's exactly why we're tossing out the dry motherboard metaphor today. For this deep dive, we are unpacking this truly groundbreaking 2026 Nature portfolio paper. It's titled The Electrofluidic Brain as a Basement Layer for Neural Computation.
It's a fascinating piece of work.
It really is. The mission here is to explore a wild, paradigm-shifting idea for you today, and that is that your mind isn't just a pattern of sparks in the dark. It actually rests on a slower, evolutionarily older, analog layer of computation.
Right. We're looking at an entirely new electrofluidic reality here.
Which is quite a term.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
But basically, the architecture of the brain itself, the complex geometry of the tissue, the viscosity of its fluids, the physical pressure gradients, that physical environment is actively computing your reality.
Kind of like a dynamic water park instead of a circuit board, where the water pressure itself is solving the math problems.
The hydraulic grid analogy is actually a much more accurate framework.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I'm trying to wrap my head around it.
Well, to fully grasp how fluid dynamics process information, we actually need to trace the historical and evolutionary breadcrumbs first.
Right, we have to go way back.
We do. We have to look at...
Oh, wow. So they thought we were basically balloon animals. And then René Descartes takes this to the absolute mechanical extreme in the 17th century, right?
He did, yeah. Descartes envisioned the pineal gland, which sits right in the center of the brain, as a literal physical valve.
Like a plumbing fixture.
Exactly. He thought it routed these flowing fluid spirits through hollow tubes to control our actions.
Which, I mean, is fascinating. And this fed into the centuries-long scientific belief in what's called a syncytium, right?
It's the syncytium, which was the idea that brain tissue was just one continuous, interconnected fluid network.
With no separate cellular boundaries at all.
Right, and this was long before Ramon y Cajal established the neuron doctrine and proved that cells were discrete.
Hold on, though. Wait. Because we have electron microscopes now, right? We know for an absolute fact that neurons are discrete, individual cells.
Yes, we do.
And they are definitely not hollow plumbing pipes. So wasn't Descartes just completely unequivocally wrong about all of this?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to separate his anatomical literalism from his conceptual logic.
Okay, meaning what exactly?
Descartes failed on the anatomy. Nerves are obviously not hollow pipes. But the underlying principle, he championed this idea of continuous, flow-based signaling, where information moves as a fluid gradient rather than a discrete digital pulse that was incredibly prescient.
Oh, I see. So the idea of a continuous fluid network wasn't a total dead end.
Far from it, actually. It profoundly prefigured our modern understanding of extracellular diffusion.
Interesting.
Yeah, Descartes recognized that a biological system could process complex behaviors through continuous fluid dynamics. He missed the microscopic mechanism, sure, but he anticipated the continuous analog layer that modern neuroscience is just now mapping.
So he was wrong about the pipes, but he fundamentally understood the importance of the flow.
Precisely.
But, okay, Descartes' pipe theory still leaves a gaping physical hole, right? If neurons aren't hollow, how does fluid actually carry a signal?
Right, and to answer that, we have to look at organisms that perfected fluid communication millions of years before the first brain even existed.
Which is just crazy to think about. We're talking about plants.
We are. This highlights the deep evolutionary continuity of life. We often assume the nervous system emerged out of nowhere in animals, completely untethered from prior biology.
Right, like it was just a brand new invention.
Exactly, but the mechanisms of signaling, like coupling electrical impulses with ion and fluid movements, those are ancient, and they are highly refined in flora.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because in the early 20th century, the polymath J.C. Bose ran these incredibly sensitive experiments on Mimosa pudica, right?
Yes, the sensitive plant.
Right, the one that visibly folds its leaves up when you touch it. And Bose proved that mechanical stimulation generates an electrical impulse, one that travels at, what, up to 44 millimeters per second?
That's right. But the computation isn't just that electrical spark. That impulse physically forces ions across cellular membranes, which causes a rapid osmotic water movement.
Meaning the water actually shifts inside the plant.
Exactly. And that massive physical turgor change, that pressure shift, is what actually makes the leaf snap shut.
Which is so cool. It's like a hydraulic reflex.
It is. The deeper mechanism there is crucial for understanding computation. The electrical signal dictates a hydraulic response, which then physically alters the plant's structural state.
And he found this in other plants too, didn't he?
Yeah, Bose also demonstrated that the ascent of sap up a stem isn't merely passive capillary action or, simple evaporation. It actually relies on rhythmic, active electrical micropumps within the cells.
So the plant's vascular network, the phloem and xylem, is essentially acting like a primitive slow-motion nervous system that runs on sap instead of synapses.
That's a great way to put it.
And modern research backs this up completely with the concept of the plant electrome. I mean, plants are using the exact same classic neurotransmitters that your human brain uses.
Yes. Glutamate, serotonin, dopamine.
Right, and they are routing these chemicals through their fluid channels. I was reading about a study where spruce trees exhibited synchronized bioelectrical activity that actually anticipated a solar eclipse.
Yes, hours before it happened.
Hours before. That is wild. But wait, how can a plant anticipate astronomical events without a brain? Are we creeping into claiming plants have consciousness here?
Well, what's fascinating here is that we have to detach the concept of computation from human consciousness.
Okay, so the tree isn't like actively thinking about the moon.
No, a spruce tree isn't pondering the cosmos. What we are observing is electrofluidic computation. It is a highly decentralized intelligence where electrical pulses and hydraulic flows are coupled to process environmental data.
Like changes in the air or the earth.
Exactly. Subtle shifts in atmospheric pressure, temperature, or geomagnetic fields. The plant processes those and triggers proactive physiological responses.
So it proves you really don't need a centralized digital-style processor to interpret and anticipate complex environmental variables.
Not at all. A fluidic, decentralized network is more than capable of solving complex survival algorithms.
Which means, if plants have been utilizing this highly effective liquid technology for hundreds of millions of years, evolution didn't just throw it away when it developed the human brain.
Right. Evolution is conservative. It built on top of it.
And that brings us to the microscopic oceans hiding between your own neurons, the extracellular space, or the ECS.
And the ECS is fundamentally misunderstood in traditional models. I mean, textbooks often depict neurons as solitary trees floating in a blank white void.
Yeah, like empty space.
But in reality, the ECS is an incredibly dense, structurally complex, tortuous fluid environment. And it serves as the vital medium for what we call volume transmission.
I love this concept. To use an analogy, the classic point-to-point synaptic firing, which we call wiring transmission, is kind of like two people talking directly to each other using tin cans pulled tight on a string, right?
That's a good visual.
It is fast, it's direct, and it's entirely private. Volume transmission, on the other hand, is like someone standing in a crowded room broadcasting a radio signal.
Exactly. The neuromodulators diffuse out into the fluid, and they can be picked up by multiple receptors simultaneously across a broad area.
But the crazy part of this research is that the physical shape of the crowded room itself keeps dynamically changing while the broadcast is happening.
Yes, and that structural dynamism is the core of Eva Sikova's research.
Right, the Czech neuroscientist.
Yes, she showed that when neural tissue electrically activates, astrocytes, which are a specific type of glial cell, they absorb potassium ions. And to maintain osmotic balance, water floods into the astrocyte, causing it to physically swell.
Okay, so the cell inflates like a balloon.
Right. And this swelling literally shrinks the adjacent extracellular space.
But wait, isn't this ECS just the padding? Like the biological coolant for the real stars of the show, the neurons? Because shrinking the padding doesn't sound like it fundamentally alters the math of cognition.
Well, it alters the math entirely, actually. Because The ECS is an active informational field.
Oh, really?
Yeah, neurons absolutely rely on precise extracellular gradients of calcium and potassium to reach their action potentials. So when an astrocyte swells and shrinks the ECS volume, it acutely increases the local concentration of those ions.
So it packs them in tighter.
Exactly.
Mhm.
While also increasing the physical resistance for any diffusing neurotransmitters.
Oh, wow. So the physical change in the fluid geometry is actively regulating the timing, the intensity, and the spread of the electrical signals.
You got it. The liquid environment is setting the parameters for whether the digital neuron can fire at all.
So it's not just a support system.
No, that was the biohybrid system in action. It is an analog fluidic computer operating as a continuous overlay, literally governing the discrete digital one.
That is just incredible. Okay, so we've got these shifting microscopic oceans between the cells dictating synaptic firing. But zooming out, the brain's liquid logic is also tied to massive, sweeping fluid waves that wash over the entire organ, right?
It is, yeah.
And this scales up directly to your own daily bodily rhythms.
Right now we are looking at macrofluid dynamics, specifically cerebrospinal fluid or CSF, and the glymphatic system.
Which happens mostly when we sleep, right?
Exactly. During deep sleep, the interstitial space expands by up to 60%, and CSF rushes in through these aquaporin 4 channels, clearing out metabolic byproducts.
Like the beta amyloid proteins that are associated with neurodegenerative diseases.
Right, it's a profound cleaning cycle. But the key here is that it's not just a passive random flush.
It's timed.
It's highly timed. The flow of this fluid is strictly entrained to low-frequency neural oscillations during deep sleep. It is synchronized with the pulsations of your heartbeat and even your respiratory cycle.
Which is fascinating. And on top of the CSF, the paper also mentions the hemoneural hypothesis, right?
Yes, which argues that blood flow doesn't just passively deliver nutrients. The vascular system is actively computing.
Okay, let me make sure I understand the mechanics of that. Because the paper said astrocytes convert glucose from the blood into lactate to feed the neurons.
That's right.
But how does delivering food equal computation? I mean, isn't that just catering?
It would be if the catering wasn't dictating who gets to speak.
Oh, I see.
Energy availability in the brain strictly dictates circuit activation. By controlling exactly when and where lactate is delivered based on localized vascular flow, astrocytes are essentially acting as metabolic gatekeepers.
Meaning, if they don't give the food to a specific area.
If a specific neural circuit doesn't receive that lactate burst, it physically cannot sustain high-frequency firing. The vascular delivery system is effectively making conditional logic decisions about which cognitive networks stay online.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? Does this imply that when you take a deep breath or when your heart beats, you are physically pumping the fluid that drives your cognition?
Well, this raises an important question regarding physiological integration, and the answer is unequivocally yes. Breathing and cardiac pulsations are mechanical drivers of brain fluid.
Just like the plant sap ascending the stem via rhythmic pumps.
Exactly the same fundamental principle. Your entire body's physiology, your lungs expanding, the hydrostatic pressure of your heart contracting, all of that is integrated directly into the computational environment of your brain.
So we're not just brains in vats.
Not at all. It is a rhythmically entrained fluidic network.
That is staggering. Your breathing dictates the physical fluid pressure gating your thoughts. But okay, this brings up a massive mechanical question for me.
Sure.
We've established the brain is full of active rhythmic fluids that shift and swell. But how does liquid actually compute anything?
It's a fair question.
I mean, when we think of computing, we think of solving differential equations, right? How does water do math?
I know it challenges our digital bias,
Yeah.
but the physics of fluid logic is actually a well-established discipline. We engineer physical liquid computers in laboratories today that perform complex mathematical operations without a single microchip.
Yeah, the paper outlines some incredible examples. Take the Belousov-Zhabotinsky chemical processors.
Right, the BZ processors.
Instead of sending electrical current down a copper wire to a silicon logic gate, these processors use oscillating chemical reactions. Like you literally have visible waves of oxidation and reduction propagating through a fluid medium in a petri dish.
And the computation occurs at the exact intersection of those waves. When two chemical waves collide in a specific geometric channel, they interact.
And that interaction is the math.
Exactly. Depending on the timing and the concentration gradients, they might annihilate each other, pass through, or combine to form an entirely new wave. That physical collision represents a logic gate, an A&D or not operation.
So the concentration gradients and the timing execute the computation.
Yes. You also see this in droplet-based logic, where the physical collision and splitting of liquid marbles actually process data.
And even before modern chemistry in the early 20th century, engineers built hydraulic integrators, right?
They did.
They literally used the continuous flow of water through interconnected pipes and reservoirs to solve complex differential equations. The water levels represented variables, and the flow rates represented mathematical integration.
It's brilliant engineering. But perhaps the most intuitive example of fluid computation is the fluid maze solver.
Oh, I love this one.
If you inject a dye into a physical maze under continuous pressure, the fluid mechanically finds the optimal, shortest path to the exit.
Because the physical pressure gradient naturally seeks the path of least resistance.
Right.
The water doesn't need to mathematically calculate the dead ends, The geometry of the maze and the hydrostatic pressure force the fluid to solve the spatial problem automatically.
It's solving a spatial algorithm just by existing under pressure.
So if we contrast these paradigms, digital computing is discrete, nanosecond fast, silicon-based, and binary. It operates like a standard light switch, on or off. Electrofluidic computing is continuous, it's slower, it's biological, and it relies on analog gradients. Less like a light switch and more like a complex network of dimmer switches governed by water pressure.
That's a perfect analogy.
But I have to ask, water solving a plastic maze in a lab is one thing. Is the human brain actually doing this, or is electrofluidic computation just a clever metaphor for something else?
It is absolutely not a metaphor. Biological systems simply do not use discrete digital logic gates. In the brain, the local changes in fluid pressure, the shifting osmotic gradients, and the physical swelling of glial cells are mechanically routing your neural signals.
So the physical pressure is the actual logic gate.
Yes. The analog fluid layer physically shapes the environment, making conditional logic decisions based on pressure and chemistry, which then allows the digital electrical layer to function at all.
That is just wow.
You really have to shift from viewing the brain as a static wiring diagram to understanding it as a highly dynamic, hydrodynamic topology.
So mind and cognition are emergent properties of this entire electromechanical and fluidic ensemble.
Yes, exactly.
So what does this deep dive ultimately reveal? It means your brain is an incredible living ecology. Your mind, your memories, your personality. It isn't just the stark spark of electricity in the dark.
No, it's so much more.
It is the rhythm of your heartbeat. It is the depth of your breathing. It is the slow, swelling, washing tides of your brain fluid. And beautifully, it is a direct evolutionary echo of the physiological intelligence of the plants sitting right outside your window.
It bridges the artificial gap we've created between human cognition and the rest of the natural world. We are, quite literally, thinking with the flow of nature.
And I want to leave you with a final provocative thought to chew on today. Right now, humanity is pouring billions into the race to build artificial general intelligence.
The AGI race, yeah.
And we are trying to achieve it using completely dry, rigid, digital silicon chips. But if a massive chunk of human cognition, our memory, our adaptability, and perhaps even our consciousness relies on the slow, analog, squishy, and rhythmic flow of physical fluids,
It makes you wonder,
can an AI ever truly think or feel like a human without being wet?
that might be the single most important question for the future of synthetic intelligence.
It really is. So the next time you sit down to work or just stare out the window, take a deep breath. Feel your chest expand. Realize that your breath is physically moving the fluid inside your head, altering the pressure gradients, and literally changing the shape of your thoughts. Your mind isn't a motherboard, it's a hydraulic grid. Keep exploring, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.